of Openapi. I am Alessandro, Marketing Manager of Openapi, and with me is Luca Scuriatti, CEO. Welcome, Luca.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And Michele Amoruso, Senior Developer.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Alessandro.
The topic of today's webinar is real estate valuations, appraisals, estimated and actual values. In particular, we will present the new real estate API that we have unveiled, previewed last month at the NPL conference event in Naples. By the way, that was not the only event Openapi participated in this month. Luca, in fact, you've put some mileage into it. In the last month, if I am not mistaken, and you have fulfilled the dream of many people who do our work.
Yes, we have. We start a path of internationalization. So I live in London, but we have done events in San Francisco, and so we are evolving a little bit in other markets. However, we stay on the Italian real estate market in this webinar.
Perfect. Luca, you feel like giving us some information a little bit about real estate valuation, real estate world, and the context, if I'm not mistaken.
Welcome to everybody. I also see some new friends. I almost say hello to somebody I'll skip, but I say hello to Claudio. We talk often by email. I see him among the participants and I say hello to him. I wanted to give a little bit of context. Openapi is a company that has been around for over a decade now. It provides services through APIs, so through an architecture of data and services requested and sent by Jason. Then on that, Michele, in the more detail, will go into a little more technical. I just wanted to give an overview of the product precisely on the market service of what we offer in the real estate market world. Share the presentation for a moment. In the meantime, what do we offer as an API in the real estate market? As you know, the real estate market is divided into three macro possible price indicators. The real price of buying sold, what does it mean? The price really spent to buy a house, building, office, or otherwise real estate property. An indication of the market price, so a market price quote, an indicator that is basically obtained in Italy, starting from the OMI data, but then the algorithm was designed and precisely cross-referenced also with the actual buy-sold, the asking price, and a series of proprietary algorithms with which we developed this market price estimation indicator. Then the third one, which however will be among the future developments, is the market asking price. That is how much the market, how much people put the house up for sale. These three prices that are often different in very different ways. Sometimes it's higher, the asking price, sometimes it's lower. It depends both on the area, it depends on the historical period, but often it also depends on the type of property, so of particular value or low value. With that in mind, then, we have created these endpoints that already exist. RMV, real market value, is the real value of the buy-sold. So how much are the prices of the buy-sold really? As I was saying before, then Michele will go into the details and he will show in this webinar just the tracing and what data we offer. The data understood as, the quotes understood as square meter data and square meter data advanced are the quotes both understood as estimates. As I said before, of the value per square meter of a property, both as estimates, historical trend and context, let's say territorial context for precisely, for then your use of it, consider that our clients include NPLs, a whole range of figures that we will go into detail later. Of course, the old services remain for those who have already been customers with us for years, which are precisely the various cadastral information services, viewings, official documents, any reports, and so on. As I mentioned earlier, among those we are, at the request of the customers, which we will launch next year, there's the asking price, then the market asking price, and then the last two are precisely a more timely valuation. So it means that in input, the API will ask for a lot more parameters to have a more timely valuation of the property, but in reality, it is nothing more than an agglomeration of the other data that we offer, and then a valuation report that has been requested. We are a little bit reticent, despite we are TOLPS licensed and are therefore in compliance to be able to create our reports. We tend, as we often prefer to remain an API gateway than convey third-party reports. So on that is an approach that we are still thinking about at more of a commercial marketing level than at a technical level. Obviously, these are very, very large numbers that are in the real estate market. So we're talking about databases. These are the numbers of buy-sold of housing at various times of the year. So in the quarters of 2022, 2023 through 2024, with a really negative version. However, we are still talking about tens of thousands of transactions for each of these transactions. Let's say not for everyone, 90%, 92%, because there is a lot of manual work behind it. We provide a set of data that we will then precisely go into detail for you from 2019 to the present. That is from when there is access to this data until today. This we talk about the real market value context. I'll close a little bit on the normative part. Obviously, the data sources are either public sources. This, however, characteristic a little bit of the whole open API world. That is, we always tend to accept that we are certified on the quality of the data. So we are held to certain data. So not to understand technologies related to scraping or other technologies in short that in use on the internet, with precisely an algorithm in property that allow us precisely to create data cross-referencing and information cross-referencing. I simplify, we have another endpoint because precisely it already uses it for the Italian zip codes. It sounds strange, but the zip codes change all the time. And this is provided to us by the Italian Postal Service. So in this continuous change of zip codes, we cross, therefore, in this case, any real estate databases with the zip code databases to make a continuously updated and more homogeneous data. This precisely is done through certification and authorization. So first I mentioned TOLPs, but then there are so many others that we are required on from security, privacy, and so on and so forth. And what is more important precisely is the fact that we also provide for a lot of data, also doing databases. So a whole historical series of data. That is how then the market changes. Now I leave it to my colleagues. Why do we do these APIs? Obviously, we sell what I always say, we don't do innovation, we sell small bricks with which then other people do innovation. So this data then will be taken, used by who precisely? By our customers with the proper permissions to then be able to create their report, create their estimation assembly, etc. And I will leave it at this point to some colleagues. I don't know now who will speak.
I, Luca, will take the sharing.
Okay.
If you can confirm that you can see the presentation correctly, I will proceed. As Luke indicated, today we will talk about 3 of the new APIs, specifically 3 endpoints. The real estate API provides access to the actual value, that is the value from purchases and sales, and estimated with respect to any property. In addition, this information from real estate value is also enriched by context information, which is both area and socio-demographic information about the inhabitants of the area. Let's see a little bit. Square meter value, both start and advanced, what they offer is a quotation, a value on the square meter, while the third endpoint instead differs because it gives the total value, because it refers to the buying and selling data. But let us see surely the various endpoints, the various information. So let's start with the start. Start is currently available only for Italy. The timing of the response is real time, and this is an example of an endpoint from call to get the data we will see. The search parameters are lease or sale, so it is possible to obtain a value in the case of either leasing the property or selling it. The address is currently a free text field between 5 and 255 characters. It is clear that we recommend that you enter the address and also the house number to get a more relevant result. There is the possibility to indicate up to 13 different types of properties, i.e., for example, stable civil dwelling, stately, commercial, but also the value regarding offices, warehouses, stores. As I said, regarding the address, clearly by choosing the most relevant type, the values that will be present at the response will be more appropriate, more relevant, and more corresponding. So what is the information? The answer contains about 20 pieces of information. It indicates the name of the area, the range, example central, semi-central, suburban. It indicates the category code and the ISTAT code of location of the area. In addition, as a geographic element, it offers geolocation, i.e. longitude and latitude. It then indicates three quotations: a minimum, a maximum, and an average. As I mentioned, as I anticipated, the value is per square meter. And this is one of the differentiators from the last endpoint that we are going to talk about. The semester of reference is the data are updated on a semester basis, March and September. Let's look at the other endpoint. The other endpoint is square meter value advanced, which clearly is also currently available for Italy, real-time response, and differs at the endpoint because instead of start, there is the term advanced. Again, the response time is in real time and the search parameters are, as I also indicated earlier, address, type of offer, and property. In this case, it includes all the previous data set present in start. In addition to context information, it indicates the percentage of listings by property type, i.e. how many listings are devoted in that area to apartments, local, villas, and how many are devoted to sales or rentals. It indicates the percentage of properties by size, that is 0-50, but 50 to 85, 85 to 115. So it also indicates a little bit the average square footage of the area. It indicates the population density of the area, how many dwellings there are, how many inhabitants there are per building, and also the density of the properties, how many dwellings, how many housing units there are per building. It indicates how many dwellings are commercial use and how many are residential use. It shows the average median square footage per dwelling. Then it also gives information on dwellings owned, empty dwellings, or second homes. Another very useful piece of information, e.g., trivially for construction companies to understand whether it might be an area in which to do trivially promotional is the seismic risk index. It is also something that can certainly be used in the assessment phase. It also indicates the age components, a range of information regarding the socio-demographic part. It indicates the average number of household members, the level of seniority, destruction, unemployment. It indicates the number of homes, those sold, and the percentage. For the provincial capitals, it also indicates a history of up to 4 or 5 years of information regarding the number of dwellings sold and the number of dwellings present. Let's turn instead to the other endpoint, real market value. With this endpoint, there is the ability to access buying and selling data. Let's see a little bit. This service is also currently available exclusively for Italy. The response happens in real time. Real, and that's the endpoint there to call. In this case, the parameters change a little bit. The type of properties are no longer 13, but 3, residential, non-residential, and a pertinent. This is a mandatory field. As for the geographic element, whereas before it was mandatory to enter the address, here it is possible to enter the address or longitude, latitude, and radius. Both the address and the geocoding element can also be entered. It is otherwise possible to filter the results by cadastral category. It is possible to set 2 filters, one economic and amounts, enter a minimum and a maximum. And time, beginning and end, both indicating the month and year. At present, data on purchases and sales are available as of January 1, 2019. What is the output? The output is information on 10 deeds of purchases and sales, plus matching the criteria given in the search phase. The individual results have over 30 pieces of information. For each individual deed of sale and purchase, clearly, it is also specific information on the individual real estate units that make up the deed. There is genetic information about the deed, e.g., the date of execution, about the real estate zone, including the OME zoning code. There is address information, both in the classical sense, city, street, and house number, and geo-coordinate. There is information on the type of property, residential, non-residential, appurtenant. There is information on the size in square meters, cadastral category, area indicated, both commercial type, not of the individual property, and also that total surface area of the act, and then clearly there is the total price. Then Michele in a little while will also show us at the operational level the individual responses, the individual outputs. What are the benefits? Certainly there is the possibility, as far as the first two endpoints were concerned, to have a relevant output indicating and choosing over from 13 property types. You get access to estimated market values. Also in the third endpoint, they are not simply estimated values, but they are the actual values, because you get access to information on the actual purchases and sales that have occurred in that area. In addition, the second point, the advanced one, also allows you to have context, both the market trends in that area and to have socio-demographic information. What are the areas of use? In part, Luke mentioned them already, and already they can be banks or financial institutions. They can be companies dealing with NPLs. They can clearly be real estate companies, software houses, startups, insurance companies, appraisers. But these are only in a limited way some areas of use. Why choose our API solutions? Not only the real estate ones, but also the ones that indicated in general look. Why? Much of our data, particularly the real estate data, is in real time. We often talk about 1,000 seconds in output response time. Only information from official sources is accessed, not required. Our platform does not have to be signed. There is no annual fee, and the cost is on demand. Some of our APIs also provide access to subscriptions that totally save money. I would turn the floor over to Michele at this point, who will take us through at the operational level individual calls and individual endpoints.
Thank you very much, Alexander. So first of all, I would start by sharing the screen so we can share our documentation to better argue and visualize the various endpoints and how to implement them. So as Alexander said, we've divided this API into two categories, where precisely you can query these two endpoints for the quote. And now we'll see that actually the implementation is pretty much the same for all three endpoints, where precisely three parameters are required in the post call, where precisely there is the address, the type, so sale or rent, and then a numerical value where you will be able to precisely indicate the type of property, so offices, stores, villas and cottages and parking spaces. What it will return precisely will be an object with all the data that Alexander has already explained. Maybe now we will also see them in detail better. And precisely the difference almost between the two endpoints, the stat one and the advanced one, is precisely the answer. That is the object that returns our endpoint. As I said, the implementation is almost the same for these two endpoints. Obviously, for any doubts or uncertainties about what the field returns, just query the schema where precisely you will be able to see the description of the field. So eventually, for any doubts, you can consult the documentation. On the other hand, as far as the Sandbox environment is concerned, obviously to test our service, it will be possible to select the test endpoint, real estate in this case. Obviously, the data that we will return will always be the same. So for the test pressure and then for the implementation, however, obviously both of privacy and service, the data will always be the same, albeit true. So as for real market value instead, as Alexander said, the mandatory data to be entered are either the address, is the type of the property, residential, non-residential, or appurtenant properties, or the attitude and longitude. So these are the minimum required fields to query the service. Then of course you can go into the specifics. As Alexander already said, the more you go into the specifics, the more truthful a result will be based on our needs. So it will be possible to indicate the circumference precisely that we are looking for, the minimum or maximum amount, or even the Rustle codes here to be entered. Obviously more than one, you can put more than one. Now, maybe to test our API, I would use, as always, our playground, which is precisely the tool that we designed just for implementation help. So in this case, to test maybe the advanced service, which is precisely where quite a lot of data is received, let's say, with respect to the start, I would test the service directly on the playground. As you see here, the JSON, which you can also copy and use for your own request. And here the endpoint being referenced is reported, in this case, precisely the post call to our advanced service. The token, of course, is the same one that is generated here, so you can use it either through the playground or through the documentation that we saw earlier, and here we can visualize the result. Obviously, in the playground, we tried to order a little bit of this big object because in the end, it's a lot of data in tables where precisely you can visualize, let's say, in a somewhat easier way and have an eye on more or less all the data. As we were saying before, it is possible precisely in the advanced be able to query more data than in the start, such as, what do I know, the details about the capitals of the sale. In this case, we queried Rome, the capital, where it will be precisely possible to view this additional data, where there are precisely the dimensions, the percentage in meters, always inherent to the selected address. Maybe we do a test in production. For real market value, we put Milan, we select the type, maybe residential. Now then, what we will receive will always be the query for this address via Geronimo Bazzi, Milano, which is a fairly central street in Milan, where will be returned 10 deeds of purchases and sales, where it will be precisely possible to view precisely the price, the date on which the sale was, the square meters, and the type. In this case, single residential. And basically here on the left, we have the representation of our JSON, where precisely, let's open maybe the second one. There is the deed code. Let's see here. It's the latitude and longitude, the distance from the street that we referred to, and then a table with all these fields. As you see here are 2 units. In this case, there are 2 rows in our table where precisely you can see all the fields. In this case, the deed code, the year, how many properties it is, the address, the region, the area, in this case, Porta Vicentina, Porta Romana. So as I said, it's quite downtown. So this endpoint, as precisely Alexander has already said, I reiterate, returns 10 deeds for actual buying and selling of a property. so true data and inherent to the address in which we made the request. So I would now hand the floor back to Alexander for any questions or clarifications.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Simply service information for those who are entered in webinar already started. From tomorrow afternoon, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel. At this point, if there are any questions, we are available.
There is already a question. I'll answer. It's from Luke Brucado then. What are the sources of mobile ads? At this stage, the mobile ads understood as asking price is an API referred to as a future API. That is, we have not submitted an API yet because by agreements made with either precisely market players, which are the mobile portals, or from other aggregators, no product or service had a cost compatible with the market or an acceptable product with the market. So actually there was maybe 2 years ago a dedicated endpoint for mobile. However, then we deprecated it. So it's an endpoint that didn't do well as a type of service. We didn't like it. And so we eventually deprecated it. And still it was with one of the major market players in short. Then as for the other question, the understandings go back from when? Then, as I indicated, the understandings from the 2010-109, I would say to today, but actually, as I said before, there is a lot of annual work when we were talking about clearance levels, privacy, etc. How does the buy-sell work in this case? The buy-sell, before maybe we entirely call it the deed code, it is not the real code of the deed, as it is not the real XY of the address. For various reasons, here in England, but in other European countries, it's a public accessible date, so it's easily accessible. In Italy, the accessible date is a certain fusion of data. So the address is in the area. What does that mean? It could be as far as 50 meters, 60 meters away from the given coordinates. However, one knows that in that area, a property was sold, not to which, of course. So one does not want to trace it back to the person. So I avoid questions already received. One does not want to trace it back to the deed. One does not want to trace it back to the person. However, in that area, a property was sold on that day. That is certain. Worth, I don't know, 340,000 euros, etc., etc. Everything else, for unnamed reasons, is not accessible data either to us or therefore to you accordingly. The coverage is wide, but also, as I said before, it is not 100% because as there is a manual work, it is a very, very wide territorial coverage. So it covers a little bit the whole Italian territory, and there is a slight delay. So as I said before, it can be a delay that can be 2 months, 3 months, just due to the physical time with which people manually have to do operations on data remediation, data entry, and so on. Alexander, do you want to add anything at this point?
Disposed. No, perfect.
Yes. You can, for example, Duke, yes, we can reason about future feasibility. Let's leave the floor on the other questions. They are a bit technical for me.
Yes. So what are the results of buying and selling? So as I indicated, our property type, so residential, non-residential per tenant, address, category from Tastel, minimum and maximum amount, and start and indicating a time frame with the month and with the year. I hope I answered, Rosita, your question.
The question was more related to the answers. In this case, I think the answers are data by radius of relevance, i.e. given the filters. So if there's a data of 10, we rewrite 10, then we would have to do a search, a second search on another radius of interest. So mind you, as I said before, it's not XY, the civic. So on that, we would like to say that, what does that mean? These software, what are these data used for momentarily? This data, like the other data, basically serve various types of clients, precisely real estate portfolio management, real estate appraisers, real estate research software, so N realities, to thus be able to try to better understand the spatial, economical environment and know what a real estate portfolio they have under management is worth. So in that perspective, it is a tool. So you know that given a point X, searched for the apartments up to 100 square meters. Now I don't want to give wrong search parameters. However, given a search data set, we answer you with the 10 properties closest to that point. But I repeat, it doesn't mean that Rossetti Street, 48, 49, or 50. It means that in the area with distances of even 50 meters, which in some territorial aspects can also be large distances. Imagine the center of Rome, street with an overlook towards Piazza Navona, the parallel 5 meters away at prices. Certainly different, however, they are certain indices. So it is a certain market indicator of territorial buying and selling in that territory, in that area. Then it's up to you to do more circles, do more research, cross-reference it with market estimate data, and in the future precisely with this appraiser, which is simply a little bit more capital to what we are developing, is to separate the OMI zones into subzones, so become a little bit more capillary on the territory, just because of this particularity precisely. But I repeat, future project now, I would not like to talk to you. Can real market value estimate the market values of a given property? No, real market value does not make market estimate. It is the real value of the bought and sold. That is, a house was sold for 324,000 euros in that area. No, right now we are not. The AVM, the listing system, already exists. So I'll adjust the question, sorry. Real market value can make an estimate of market value of a given property. Are you thinking of developing an AVM, automated validation model? So on the first question, as I said about before, no, the real market value is the true market value. The listings, the square meter value is an estimate of the market value. So it then has to be multiplied by the square meters trivially. The AVM is part of the questions precisely of the points in development to next year. So an AVM and then a report. So they are two projects in development of 2005. So it will be, on the one hand, chosen the supplier, the requested price, which is the missing link. So requested price, estimated price, price actually sold. After that, the AVM project is already underway. It actually already exists. But for a moment, reasoned absurdly, it's often more the complication between the regulations, certification. So whatever we put out can then have it certified data quality, software quality. And after that, publication. So there is a very long time related to these steps in business terms. But yes, a market evaluator is in development, and actually the final report always did. So that is the only one that will have an aspect of doubt. So the final report, which will be kind of like the other reports that we provide, so white label, obviously authorized, because anyway, they are estimates, votes, aggregations of data, and business information under TOOPS. Here I will have a little bit of information that we often get questions that they ask us. How come on some APIs we ask for ID? We ask to contact them with electronic signature, again by regulation. That is we on some services when we give commercial information, even of this type. So this falls under commercial info. We are required every quarter to notify the prefecture who requested what. So it's not a legal requirement, which then I hope everyone respects the industry trends. And so that's why at some point it's required, not for all API. Obviously you've sent a text message, there's AGICOM, but there's another regulation. We're obviously written to ROC. In that case, API will ask you to certify the militant of the text message. So to identify you for another reason. So each API has its own regulation. However, the API and onboarding accompany you in this, let's say, fortunately only the first time or when the document expires. However, I find this doubt. By what criteria are the returned values selected? How many, which ones, the distances of the geographical location required? Yes, as I said before, if we are talking about real market value, if you indicate an address, actually, whether it is an address or XY, we turn it into XY. From there, taking the XY, reiterating, it's not the XY of the property. We go to the radius of, as soon as we find 10 properties that meet the requirements of any filters that you have set up, we respond with the top 10 properties, 10 buys and sells in that territorial radius. If it's more, they don't come out, i.e. now at 10 they stop. If it's less, the radius can be very large, i.e. and exploded. Imagine you make a request for 10 properties bought and sold in an agricultural land area. It could go as far as buying and selling 5 kilometers away. This could provide or still get to a very, very large radius if You make a request with a very broad historical period on an extremely bought and sold building. It could be that it stops at 100 meters. Reiterating the concept that it may not necessarily be 100 meters real, it is, I repeat, an area compatible with sale.
There are no more questions. At this point, we can close and adjourn to the next webinar. Okay, great.
I had
Thank
been
you.
missing for a while, so great job. From the inside, I say bravo, and thank you to you who participated in the webinar. Obviously, then through email or through just contacts, any more questions. We hear from you and sign up in short.
1,000 to everybody. Good afternoon and good work. Until the next webinar.
Everybody.